let's say you were a kind of person that's not really good at reading and understanding behavior. Our software can be overlaid in an interaction and give you real-time feedback, catch your blind spots. It can coach you individually on specific movements, language patterns, tonality aspects. I don't know exactly what direction I'm going to take this.
Blake, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Exciting.
Likewise. So we talked recently and you said you're currently working on a book, and the book is a new kind of how to win friends and influence people. Now, why does it need an update?
Yeah, so social skills have been taught to be these simple things, and they are, but social dynamics are just so complex. And I don't think there's been any books that sort of explains the why behind a tactic working. So for example, somebody gives you a tip online. You're like, oh, that's really good. And you use it, but you don't understand the underlying robust nature on why it works. So I wanted to write a book that's going to sort of explore those mechanics. So give tools, but also provide an underlying science and foundation for everything that's sort of going on. And it's kind of like, I've been working on this book for like 3 years now because it's writing my materials in my programs. And now, distilling, it's a confronting thing to distill like all this complexity into something that is under 90,000 words and really useful. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of something you're shining a light on that maybe we haven't come across in the book yet?
So I think there's a bunch of different sort of unique takes, but probably the most foundational one is the world of the invisible. So we talk a lot about behavior and body language and what people say and how they say things, but we don't talk about the invisible pervasive themes that sort of bind human interaction together. Things like status and hierarchy, things like safety and survival, things like value orientation. And in order to understand behavior, you need to understand what's not there, which is this world of expectations. And I'm obsessed with cross-disciplinary science, like looking at a wide range of scientific fields and seeing where they're all saying the same thing, but differently. And I sort of have this thesis that comes from the pervasive themes. Like, why do we organize ourselves into status structures and hierarchical structures, right? And then why do some companies that try to do this, it can sometimes work, but most of it fail. Like, I've gone into companies, and I'm sure you've worked with people like, oh, we have a very flat organization.
Totally flat.
Yeah, totally flat. We're all equal. And in 5 minutes, you're like, this is not flat at all. You're just saying it's flat. So there's something about the mechanics of psychology and our neurochemistry and biology that does that. So it's important to understand those themes if we really want to deeply understand people.
That's super interesting because a lot of books, especially for business people, stay at the surface level, right?
Yeah.
They say, do this, say that, and there's value in that, but it's super interesting to go a level deeper, but that's super hard work as well, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'd like my book to be in a lot of ways, is like this foundational precursor to any social skills advice. Because there's sometimes like I'm in an audience and I'm watching on a stage, somebody says something around social interactions, and I'm like, oh, that's like really good. Like, that's a great tip. But I could explain the robust nature of why. And the problem is when people apply social skills, they take a tip, but because it's not designed for them, they fail in the execution of that tip. So it's sort of creating a lens where you could pull in information that's useful. Actually, honestly, your question, I gotta just thank you, because you just connected two things that were disconnected while I'm writing. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Do you have a title yet?
Not yet. We have a working title.
Yeah.
It's one of these things that I'm still, working with. Listen, I'll be honest. Like, as a creator, I love that I can change things.
Yeah.
So my course, I'm just refilming the whole thing because it's like flawed in certain ways. With a book, though, it's hard because the book is the book, right? So I'm spending a little bit more time thinking through like the structure, the architecture. It's taking me way longer than I thought it would, and partially because you have to distill and really critically look at what's important and what's not important. But the book is kind of like a summary of my life's work for the last 20 years before I start doing other stuff.
And you've done amazing things we talked about last time when you were on the podcast, the Poker Pro, you're a psychology professor, obviously. You build the Nonverbal Group, and you call yourself a behavioralist. What does that mean?
I mean, it was just, it was kind of a cool thing. So I remember when I was in the grad school, no, I think undergrad, like learning about like B.F. Skinner, like the first behaviorist and stuff like that. And a lot of his stuff is completely like wrong. I just thought it was super cool. Like some of this, so I like the identity of like this Sherlockian, like sort of like behavioralist.
Studying human behavior from the outside observing, rather than being dragged in.
Exactly. But the reason why I love behavior is because humans are these prediction machines that are constantly sort of predicting the reality. And there is no such thing as reality, but video captures a raw reality that I can sort of look at. And, you know, a video is essentially like raw pixels and raw data, and it provides a somewhat level of truth in a world with so much complexity. So I've always been like fascinated. Like you can't dispute somebody's like smile timing or smiling morphology. You can dispute what it meant. You could dispute if it was intended. You could dispute if it was a nice smile or a bad smile. But the raw data is the raw data, which is why I like the concept of behavior.
At the Nonverbal Group, you help executives and businesses make sense of social interactions, of communication. I guess in reality, like my job is to help people navigate a relatively complex world that gets more and more complex. What do people ask you for? What kind of advice do people need right now?
It's really interesting. So I get pulled in for like human process optimization. So like a company is like I have a project with an organization right now that has a ton of sales calls, and I'll analyze like the 26,000 sales calls that they've had already and provide feedback on sort of where they're missing the human element in these conversations and how to optimize the workflow and optimize the process. Or I'll work with like an executive team on having a more collaborative environment. So I usually go in with one approach, but then I see so many other things on the videos that it starts going to something else. So it's like, and I think my longer term clients are just like, Blake reduces the friction of our team unlike anything else. So like, let's say I'll watch a call, and now our software catches a lot of this, but like, let's say you said something and your CTO was like taken back by it. I'll catch it, show it to the CEO and be like, hey, like what happened here? Then put you two on a call and get it cleaned up in minutes, as opposed to, oh, I can't believe he said this. I can't believe he said that. So think about this, like all the back-minded sort of conversations you have about people in your organization, I'm constantly going in and like clearing it out and fixing it. But the truth is, like, I've just done so many weird things over the years.
They don't call you for the standard things, right?
Yeah, it's rare that it's just like, hey, I want to be a better speaker in my organization. Like those things are more rare now. But occasionally old clients would be like, hey, talk to Blake, talk to this. But I'm doing that amount of work is becoming less and less of my overall sort of time I dedicate.
Yeah, makes sense. And you have this interesting sentence that you mentioned that you're teaching people and machines to read human behavior, right? Mm-hmm. You also mentioned that there's a lot of data to crunch. So where did the machines come in?
So the truth about reading behavior is reading is a really bad term. And it's hard because I need to use it as like a marketer, right? Like, oh, like learn how to read people. But the truth is it's not possible. Like you can never read someone. You could only predict. And your predictions have accuracies that are either high or low. So the reading people, it's a dangerous term because it infers that you can encapsulate exactly what that person's experience, and you can't. Like, I'm sure there's times where you look at someone and you go, oh, they're really happy. And deep down inside, they want to get out of that meeting as more than anybody else. And there's other times where you think someone's really depressed and it's just their facial construction, right? So it's that. But the same way that, let's say like you had a friend for 30 years and you sit down for dinner with them. And in the first 2 minutes, you're just like, something's up, right? Like you get this sense that something's up. And you're like, hey, is everything okay? It's like, everything's not okay. Actually, you know, I just found out I have cancer. I'm a little bit worried, blah, 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 whatever it is. How did you come up with that spider sense? And the reason and the mechanism was you processed a large amount of pattern-based data with that person, and you sort of made this educated guess about what the reason on why they were doing it. So if you operate from first principles, there's no reason a machine can't do this with higher accuracy than people. And that's kind of what we're building. But it's a very complicated process, and I can explain why. It's just
yes, please.
very
But just for my
complicated.
understanding, so initially you're taking a baseline, right? So in the example of your friend, you know your friend's baseline behavior because you've met so many times. So you know something isn't right, but you don't know what it is. Hence, you press him to say, "Come on, what's going on?" Is that fair?
It's fair, but the whole notion of like body language baselines, it's just so oversimplified. It's like kind of comical. So like a lot of body language experts will be like, oh, you got to figure out their baseline and notice when there's a change. They like kind of use that as like a catch-all to like fix everything. And the truth is, baselining is the most biased process ever. Machines can hyper baseline. Like we have a system called Cheshire that could sort of measure your smiles and figure out the bell curve distribution of your smiles and where they're all aligned. But people do this at such a rapid intuitive sense that it's very hard to reverse engineer and articulate exactly what it is. So the baseline is not relative to that person. The baseline is relative to you, your current state, and all the interactions you've had in your entire life, right? So it's part of it is not understanding baselines. It's understanding what I call perceptual bell curves. So it's basically like this. I say that there is no way that we can read behavior. But if you gave me a video of somebody, you gave me a video of 3 people, I could predict with a high accuracy which person is perceived to be the most confident in that video. And I can do that not because of anything except mapping the behavioral distribution of what society in certain cultures perceives as confidence. So we can predict that as opposed to predicting exactly what it is. So like I work with teams and I can predict who's probably going to cause social frictions based on behavior. And what I'm looking for is those perceptual bell curves. So it's a little bit more robust when you start to build sort of pipelines that do this. But yeah, it's what humans do with actually, it's kind of cool. It's what humans do. Somebody said something to me. He was like, well, all people are biased. I was like, well, what's cool about our systems is they're way more biased than people, but there are way more versions of them. So like we have a system called consensus that kind of like argues with each of the sort of logic models to determine, well, you're coming at this way, this going this way. And what's really fascinating is like you can build out perceptual systems that mimic human behavior. So like I can build a very negative leaning perceptual model that takes all your behavior and be like, well, he was dismissive there and he was this. And then I can build the entire opposite of somebody just looking at all behavior and being like, wow, they're such a great person. They're so alive. They're so attentive. But the real interesting thing is where society agrees on what is average. That's where it's helpful.
Interesting. And I suppose that the algorithm having biases, you said more biases, but they probably don't get emotionally attached to them. So they're more learning iterations.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's just predictions. It's not like, oh my God, this person said this. So it's less bias at the processing level. And also there are stages that are not biased. Like, so when we take the human face and break it down, like, I'll tell you the first step. Have you ever seen like those emotional recognition software?
Yes.
Like where you see someone smile and it says they're happy. Like they're just complete nonsense. It's just like, it's just
silly apps, right?
They're silly apps. And what they're based on is like OpenCV or MediaPipe, where they put these facial landmarks on your face and they detect when you smile and they infer that you're happy. Well, you smile a lot, not as an indication of happiness, but like social coordination and all that stuff. So like the first real step is a very complex lift in computer vision to massively improve those systems, because the ones that are right now don't capture all the nuance of human behavior. So for example, but when you're doing like facial coding using something like FACS or something like that, like you're using like wrinkles to figure out a lot of muscle movements, those systems don't pick up on wrinkles. So we have a system that sort of like parses your face and finds out where there's wrinkles to help define that. And the goal is to sort of create this not mathematical, but like a visual model where it's like me being processed by a machine, and you could understand right now, like, is Blake interested? Is he not? What are aspects of his face? What are this, at a high level of fidelity? But the problem, I mean, I could talk about this for hours. The problem is compute. Like, if we were to take this conversation and run all of our models on it, it's like a 500 megabyte file. It couldn't do that at real time.
Yeah.
The more and more I build this stuff, we are so cool and special and unique as humans.
Yeah.
Like, I just have more of a respect for us and our biology the more and more I do this. Because, like, how do we do all of this? This is crazy.
It's crazy how we process, and the processing, the compute we have between our ears is just crazy.
It's incredible.
The question comes up, why do you build it? What's the reason for this to exist?
It's tough. So I'll be honest. All the stuff that I've done in my life has just been like focused on helping people be more effective communicators. And sort of the objective function of everything we teach is to increase the amount of value you add and extract from social interactions and minimize the suffering. So a lot of people are suffering, and I don't believe they need to. And there's tools to sort of reduce the suffering.
Agree.
The technology and the stuff that I'm building, it's like, it's hard. Am I actually increasing suffering? Because this will replace so many jobs. Like, it will. But it will reduce suffering when you have a robot in your house that's able to sort of identify and pick up on your little themes and patterns of behavior and coach you at a highest fidelity. It will reduce suffering by getting people to do the jobs that they don't necessarily want to do. So I do struggle with some of the philosophical discussions of this, but honestly, I think how I rationalize it is like, somebody is going to do this, and I'd rather it be me, because I would approach it with sort of the care and attention to detail that I think most people are not going to do. They're just going to try to build a product, but they don't account for the sort of nuance of it all.
Yeah. And if I think about business, how would you use it in business?
An example would be, I mean, so many different ways. Like, we're already deploying some of this, but like, let's say you were a kind of person that's not really good at reading and understanding behavior, right? And you really struggle with social interactions. Our software can be overlaid in an interaction and give you real-time feedback on what you might not need to do and what not need to do. It can catch your blind spots. It can coach you individually on specific movements, language patterns, tonality aspects. It can be integrated in a wide range. I don't know exactly what direction I'm going to take this. I have like a couple options. The first option is do what I'm doing now, which is integrating versions of this inside of my own software and really focusing on social interactions. The second is building like a model company, a company that builds and licenses models. And then the third option is building an infrastructure company. So building like the OpenAI or the Anthropic of human behavior. But the thing that's hard is, like, I've coached a bunch of venture-based founder startups over the years. And it's really thinking like, do I want that life? And do I want to play that big of a game? And what I give up when that happens? Like, right now I'm in Austin, I travel, I do whatever I want. If I build a infrastructure company, I'm moving to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no other place that I can be.
And you work pretty much around the clock.
Yeah. And I'm working, and I'm marching towards something. And, you know, the value is I spent a very long time executive coaching a wide range of clients at very big startups to private equity to, like, you know, neurosurgeons. So I kind of know what works for me. So you just got to really make that conscious choice about how you're going to do it. But I'm doing some version of this. I just don't know the scale that I want to do it at.
So at the moment, it's more the foundational technology layer.
Mm-hmm. And there's also, like, just for any of you who start a startup, like, I don't really believe, personally, for me at least, I don't believe in the whole raise money and let us build something. I believe more in let's build something, let's get to solid ARR or MRR, and then let's raise money to explode it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so all of my corporate clients, all the money I'm making, it just gets deployed to this.
Yeah, I can imagine. How big is the operation? Are you raising out? So you're not raising out some money. It's organic at the moment.
Yeah, it's organic. It's probably, I mean, it's definitely more than, it's probably next year I'll probably be at like $1.6 million of, I guess it's like my money, like being diverted to this. I work with two AI focus engineers, people with like really good backgrounds in computer vision, model creation, all of that. I've got 2 engineers, and then I got 2 other people on it. But the truth is, the reason why it's going so much quicker, I would have never been able to do any of the stuff that I'm doing right now without like Claude Code. Like that has changed the game entirely. This wouldn't have been, I've had this vision for years, but I would have always had to raise ridiculous amounts of money to accomplish this. I'm pretty much like a full stack engineer, so I understand development environments, and I don't trust myself with a lot of things, but Claude Code, I mean, I'm pushing to get like last week I pushed like 60,000 lines of functional code. It's just absurd.
Wow.
It's like, it's really absurd.
You needed just a couple of years ago, you needed a whole team to do that.
Oh, forget about it.
An expensive team. It's not a,
It's not only an expensive team, but like the feedback loops, like right now, like I have a very like detailed eye. So like, let's say we just push some sort of development and I'm like, well, it doesn't really, it's breaking on this, it's breaking on this. Now I click the function key on my keyboard and I'm like, listen, you're breaking this. I want you to switch the framework to using pixel spacing at 4 pixels, use this JavaScript framework, use this, try it. And I sit there for like 2 minutes. And then I don't know if any of you are really like, if anybody listening to this is, there's kind of, let's discuss this sort of state of AI, right? Like there's AI, which in a lot of ways is really, these foundational models are powering everything, right? So if you sign up for some sort of app and you're using it, and people will make jokes that it's so funny because people will be like, this is better than OpenAI. It's like, this is OpenAI. Like this is, or this is Claude or whatever. It's just modified for the user. But I think where AI can be really sort of helpful is in this building stage. It's not like you say a couple things and a full product gets built, but there is no need right now for my team to have a junior developer. So like I'd rather pay my more senior people more and max them out and have them use Claude and all the other tools that we have. But it's a real nuanced process. So like if you've ever coded with Claude, you have this file called like Claude MD, which is like this markdown file that like says everything. Like optimizing that file is incredible. And then you could get really like, I'll just tell you one thing, like any of you who are in Git or whatever, in developers, you could do something called work trees. So work trees basically take, how do I explain this in basic terms? They take an asset and they split it to 3 separate environments, right? And the 3 separate environments don't interact with each other technically. So you can work on them simultaneously and then you merge them. Ooh. So what I'll do is I'll have like our API layer on the left, our user interface here, and our like OAuth or onboarding process here, and I'll work on them simultaneously.
Would you say that 10x is the speed?
It's not even 10. Yeah. I don't even know the number. It's like 10xing the 100x. Wow. And even some developers on my team, like I've had to be like, let me show you something, and they're just like, holy shit. And any of you out there listening to this right now that are cross-functional, meaning you understand design, you understand a little bit about marketing, you understand a little bit about product development, you're technical but not super technical. You are sitting on a gold rush and gold mine of opportunities, because I believe the people with the diverse perspectives for the first time ever can build at speeds that are unprecedented.
Yeah. I agree. We may see the one-person billion-dollar company very soon. And
you're going to see it. Yeah.
Small teams, what they're doing. I speak to a lot of founders every day, and it's incredible how fast they can move with very small teams of really good people. And as you say, the downside is that for junior people, it's very hard to get into the labor market, where senior people with a lot of experience like us get empowered, can reduce costs, move faster, and build cool stuff. And what we need to keep in mind is that AI doesn't do the judgment for us. And, I in my TED Talk, I contrast the sort of the raw intelligence that we're getting at our disposal, fast, cheap, abundant. But the wisdom and the human judgment, that's still up to us. And that is a relatively rare quality. So I really appreciate you saying, I want to make sure that what I'm building is actually serving humanity rather than just being, a cool business that makes me a lot of money.
Yeah, it's like, I've never been one of these people that's like money. I like money or whatever, but if I made the amount of money that I made now for the rest of my life, I would have a pretty great life. I just like challenging problems, and I like helping people, and it's been so great that that's been my career for the last 20 years. But yeah, I am definitely, I wasn't concerned a year ago. A year ago, if you were to have this conversation with me,
we did.
it's like, yeah, like I'd be like, yeah,
not
it's gonna take
yet.
like, it's not there yet. It's gonna take this. I don't think modern society is ready for what's coming. I gave a presentation to about 1,000 business owners in Vegas a couple of weeks ago. I gave a talk about nonverbal behavior 45 minutes. Then people started asking questions. And somebody asked me a question about AI, and I kind of went on this rant. And the rant was, everybody in this room is screwed if they don't start understanding what this is, right? So, the audience was a little bit like agreeing and then unhesitant. And then this one guy kind of looked at me weird. And I was like, listen, would you be willing to go through an experience right now? And he was like, yeah, I'm totally down. So he came on stage. I took out my computer. I plugged it into the thing. And I was like, tell me, so what do you do for work, right? And he owned a manufacturing company. And I was like, all right, what's your biggest problem right now? And he starts talking about like their CRM and how to get leads and all this stuff. And over the next 15 minutes, I ask him questions and I build a system. And he was like, yeah, I don't need to hire somebody now. And like everybody started clapping. And I was like, this is not a gimmick. You're going to have people do this across every industry. And those of you who are not adopting are going to get destroyed by somebody who is thinking how to use these tools. And I really believe, I strongly believe that our society needs to prepare for some sort of universal basic income. Society needs to find a way to like tax AI robots, because I think there's the gap between wealth is going to start to get so profound. And we got to use this technology to take care of people that are not using it, or else we all lose. So like, I'm a big believer, and I don't think there's enough conversations about this. And I hope they're like, in America, my country, they're not talking about this at all. But like, I hope it starts to become part of a global conversation, so we're ready for when we're replaced. And,
I think so. Here in Europe, there's a lot of discussion about AI and the threats of it, but I think people focus on the wrong things. Like you, they're thinking about, will it wipe out humanity and all that stuff? And I'm glad there are people who think about this, but you and I can't do anything about that anyway. So I think for the interested public and business people, entrepreneurs, etc., we should focus on exactly what you're saying. How do we give people purpose if their job's going to fall away? How do we actually pay for all of that? Because the current model of taxation in the Western world is we tax work at a very high rate, and then we give it to some people in need who are retired or school children, for education, or people who can't work for some reason. And that's going to blow up. And it's already blowing up, because you can see how much tax take there is across Europe, often over 50% of what the country generates in terms of GDP. But still, countries piling up debt. So you can see the model isn't working anymore, but no one has the guts to really say, it's not working. We need to completely rethink how the tax base is generated, who we tax, how or what, robots, and how we give purpose to people who cannot maybe survive or thrive in this particular brave new world.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Like, it's like, I could imagine, like, I get a lot of value from talking to someone, and they're like, Blake, you changed my life. Imagine to the point of where I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to you, but my machine's going to be better. Just talk to it. It's like, it's a scary proposition, right?
Yeah.
Or just, that's what I'm afraid of more than anything, is that I don't think people get how much work and the things that they do to live, they get meaning out of that. So some people listening to this right now would be like, listen, if you paid me $100K a month and I hadn't $100K a year and I didn't have to do anything, I'd be the happiest person in the world. I get that.
Yeah.
But some of us would be absolutely like, well, we have no purpose now. There's nothing to truly create, nothing truly to do. And it's just, I'm seeing it in so many ways. I'll give you a really weird example. So I have a board game night every Tuesday that I play with friends, right? And we play this game called Moonraker, and it's like a strategy cooperation game. And I was sitting there and I was like, it'd be fun. I'm like sitting on the computer and I'm sitting on the game and I'm like thinking through optimal strategy. And I won. So anybody on the board game that listens to this, I won last round. But then I was like, you know what? It would be cool to build a model and sort of test it on like GTO and Monte Carlo simulations, see what the optimal strategy is, right? So, that used to be something that like the kind of fun little projects that I would think about and maybe do. I went into Claude Code and did it yesterday morning, and I had it run 10 hours of simulations and help me solve the understanding in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Like I built it in 5 minutes, I executed it all day, and I read the results on optimal strategy. And it really made sense, and it was probably the most optimal strategy. So it's kind of like when these things are so good, all of your ideas can be executed by this thing that's more sort of profound. But yeah, I personally hope, I don't know if I want to, I don't think people really understand the implications of what superintelligence really is. And I don't think they're doing good AI safety stuff for that. So I don't know if I necessarily want to live in a society with superintelligence. Like it's really hard to understand, to wrap your head around that because you don't know what you don't know. But imagine something orders of magnitude smarter than the smartest human. And imagine someone who has access to not only that raw intellectual capacity or that raw processing power, but also to all of the information that us humans have created. It's like freaking Battlestar Galactica coming,
Yeah. So what can people do to compete, not compete with the machine, but to use the machine to compete, as I put it?
Yeah. So I would say first, you have to acknowledge, you got to drop all your filters and sort of biases and all this stuff for these things.
Yes.
Right. So many people are getting into conversations about, well, this isn't good, or I don't think we should use this yet. You don't have to. But if you have a process, like there's a lot of processes in my company that I still do not trust any LLM to handle. Mm-hmm. It's me answering. I still answer client. I don't like automate client bots when somebody sends me an email, anything like that.
No.
But what I can do is use AI and use these systems to replace some of the process. So for example, I can use a system that reads an email, order categorizes the priority, and if it's the highest priority, to text message me. You couldn't do that before because without the LLMs, you couldn't understand the context of the message. So if I were to get an email from like one of my like private clients, it could be like, hey, Blake, check this article out. And another email could be like, hey, Blake, I really need to talk to you this week. Different priority levels that we couldn't understand. Now we can. So I think you have to just understand that if you're not integrating this in some way in your life, you're just at a major disadvantage. And I don't mean to be like rude or disrespectful, but if you think cutting and pasting into ChatGPT or Claude interfaced is using this in your life, you're not getting the full power of what's happening. It can go way more than that with workflows and all that stuff. And I really believe that the people that understand these tools, that lean into these tools, that understand how to use them, whether it's 10%, 20%, 80%, are going to significantly destroy the people that don't.
That's what I also believe. And the way I approach this as a non-technical person is not to think about how to automate emails, but I approach from a different perspective to say, what would it take to save me an hour a day? And that made it,
Love that.
So a few years ago, right? That framing made it way more interesting for me because it's like, oh, I would love an hour back a day. Cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How can I do this? So I've figured it out from that perspective. So if people looked at this, that's my suggestion. So how do I, what's my big pain point here? Can I save time? Is there a process I really hate doing, the, manual invoicing or whatever it may be? And then just find a way, and you can just go to YouTube, and there's so many great tutorials, webinars, etc. Most of it for free, some small money really. So you get a wonderful education almost for free, and can apply it to a specific problem you face, and maybe join forces with another few people who are working on similar problems, and just exchange what's working for you. That would be a relatively straightforward way to approach this, rather than, oh, I heard I should be doing agentic AI, but I'm not really sure, so I don't know what to start, and it leads to that paralysis.
Yeah, I love that approach, but I push back on one thing specifically for you. Don't let the perception of not being technical stop you. So based on, like, I've had 2 conversations with you. I read your LinkedIn post. I read your emails. I would be willing to bet a large sum of money that you're probably way more technical than you think you are. And you don't need to be that technical because you can ask it to do every step. So this is one of the things that I do. I have something called a learning file. So basically, I'm technical compared to most founders, but I'm not CTO level, right? So what I do is every time I reach a challenge when we're developing stuff, or there's something I don't understand, every session I have it write another markdown file that's called Teach Blake. And it explains everything that it did and gives me resources to dive deeper. So like at the end of every day, I go into that sheet and I read and I drop that into Claude and I have conversations like, oh, I don't really understand why the API request was failing. Can you explain that to me? And then I'm learning in this massive, quickly feedback loop.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy. It's like right now my AI thing is I watch about 40 minutes of random videos on YouTube that I find interesting every night. And then I spend about an hour reading those log files and diving deeper, and just sort of understanding different things. And I'm telling you, my speed over the last 3 months has been insane. Like I'm just understanding way more. And then it's really just, I surround myself with a lot more technical people and have conversations. But I believe people like yourself that have like this cross-disciplinary understanding, that's a byproduct of coaching and seeing so many businesses, I believe you're the most deadly because you see the matrix more than the engineer. Like the engineer doesn't see maybe the nuance of product and marketing. They just see engineering. So they look at it this way and they're like, oh, well, it's useful for this, but I don't really like how it chose this function. And I don't like, this doesn't make sense. And da-da-da-da. But when you see the bigger picture, it's like, woo, like you get to see how all these things sort of connect.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And I'll take that to heart. Maybe I shouldn't describe myself as a non-technical.
Yeah, no, I think you'd be able to pick it up so quick.
AI augmented. And I agree, compared to most people, because I pushed for this. And I like to push myself in a way that, they're forcing functions, like the TED talk I gave months ago, right? So, I don't know, in 3 months I have a TEDx talk. I'm talking about AI and leadership. So I better sharpen up, right? I better
you should. That could be perfect.
Yeah.
It could be like a 3-month sprint for yourself. And what I would do, this is where you start. I would go for this. I usually test all the models, but like this would be, I think, a better Claude thing. Like use Opus 4, but like here's the deal. Give it all the context you have on you. Explain what you did, and you probably have this written down somewhere, and say in 3 months, I'm doing a thing on this. I want to become more technical. Where do I start? I want you to design a daily plan for 45 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day on what you do. And you just follow the plan and interact. And that's the thing. And really, like if you talk about education, it's hard as an educator. Like I make videos and do all this stuff. That's really how people learn. Like people learn through feedback loops and through a mechanism of like exchange and all that. And that's what these things provide us. And we didn't have that before. Totally.
I think learning will completely change from this, just in case to just in time. Just in case, in the sense I watch the whole video course and then let's see how I apply it. And it's not really clear how I apply it to my situation. So you and I have video courses on communication skills, but then you're like, but do I do the right thing with my hand, or do I structure my messages correctly? Well, you have no way of finding out. Now, with this approach, you can obviously learn just in time. So you learn a little bit, then you encounter a challenge, go back, okay, that's how I overcome it. And as you said, it absolutely fast tracks, supercharges the speed with which we learn. And also you and I, as educators and coaches, we can apply that to our businesses as well. And I'm looking into that as well. We have custom GPTs, etc. So if you don't get the bad average of the internet, you can use my custom GPTs, which are properly trained on particular texts, etc. But there's certainly more, and the technology allows us to do even more than that. For me, that was just a first step to integrate AI into what I do.
Exactly. And like little steps, little steps. Like I tell my friend, one of the big steps that I have. So on my phone, the Apple has that button. So when I click that button, I get ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So that I'm like using that as much, and just sort of like checking things out there. And also, sometimes you don't use it to ask questions. Use it as an aggregate. Like I'm going for my 40th birthday to the Mediterranean. So I was like, oh, I'm doing something fun. I'll show you. For my 40th birthday, I'm having ChatGPT and Claude buy me a gift. So I'm going to say, based on everything you know about me, I want you to get me a gift under, 2K or whatever. I'll pick a number. And then my wife's going to buy it and wrap it up. And I'm going to open up what the gift is.
And next thing, they will buy it for you, right? The
Yeah.
agents.
Eventually, I mean, I technically could do it that way, but I want it wrapped.
It can't do that. And
You can't do that yet.
No,
Yeah.
we had this joke here in Germany, AI will run whole businesses. And we said, well, there's still a person who has to go to the notary to set up the business. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's still bottlenecks, but they're going to be reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced until there aren't any.
Exactly. Wow. This is so good. Thank you. And
yeah, of course.
If you're interested in what other cool shit Blake is doing, go back to the first conversation we had last year. We talked about his background as a poker pro, psychology professor, working with humans and human behavior, nonverbal behavior, what's working, what maybe isn't working. And I took so much away from this conversation, Blake. So first of all, what you taught me about, baselines, what you taught me about where, what the state of tech really is. A lot of claims out there that may not be substantiated. And super cool that you're working on this frontier of AI and human behavior. And, I love to hear that you want to make sure that this is deployed in the right way that actually serves humanity, because the changes we already see coming are immense, and we will all have to learn to deal with that. But I think everyone listening to this can be hopeful because it offers all these opportunities. And even if you're young, I think you don't want to go for some typical young person career where you go to business and learn the ropes for years. That's probably not going to work anymore. But if you learn AI, as you said, over the next 3 months, you're absolute killer. And you probably know more than 99.9%, and you will never have to worry, you will not have to worry for the coming years about finding jobs or building a business, because you'll be head and shoulders above everyone else. It is that rare opportunity. I think last time it happened was in the 90s when the internet came up.
Yeah.
Where I was young back then, and we had the sort of first mover advantage, if you like. So we were there, but I, as a back then non-technical person, now technical person in the making, didn't maybe, I was involved in startups and scale-ups and so on, but now it's very obvious what's happening to me, and therefore I think I'm maybe better prepared than I was back then.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're like your own little Claude summary right there. That was a pretty good summary. It was a great job.
Thank you. So, famous last words. I always ask, what's your best piece of communications advice?
I would say, I don't know what I said. I don't remember what I said last time, but I am more and more convinced that if you're communicating with, I think I know what I said, so I'm going to switch it. Establish range. So the human body is this incredible, beautiful apparatus. And what happens over time is you tend to stay in your sort of like homeostasis communication zone. And with working with people for so many years, it is so interesting how when you push their comfort zone, how much range and how dynamic they can actually be as a communicator if they just push past that fear and practice. And every leader needs a wide range to deal with the sort of goals and objectives of being a leader. Sometimes you need to motivate. Sometimes you need to, slow down and apologize in a right way. Sometimes you need to calm people down. Sometimes you need to hype people up. And that all comes from creating more range. So I would say the more you create range and push your comfort zone, the better and more effective you'll be.
Yeah. I love that. And you're actually one of the people I quote the most. Because
really? Cool.
Yes, absolutely. You said the best communicators have range. And I often have these conversations. I like to stay in this box. So Blake says the best communicators have range. And it is so true. And no one has said it better. So thank you for that.
No, and that's where, but then I'll give you one last thing on that. So that's where people will say, but then they'll give me an example of someone. And they'll say, but this person is X, Y, and Z. I'm like, you're not understanding the invisible world. Because sometimes somebody has so little range, but so much status, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
they could do whatever the hell they
Yes.
want.
Andrew
right?
Huberman talking for 3
Yeah.
hours in a monotonous
Yeah.
scientist voice. Yes.
Andrew's like in this sort of communication range, and it's like almost cute when he steps out of it a little bit. It's like, oh, there's the sweet Andrew. But he's, Andrew Huberman, so he doesn't need that robust range.
Exactly. And
For that medium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, for that one medium. I'm sure he has more
Yeah.
range than we know, but
Yeah.
so good. Blake, thank you so much.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.